Yes, yes. My guest that I've just been chatting with before we went on the air is Barry Goldwater. It's indeed a pleasure to have him. He ran for the Senate in Arizona for the first time in 1952, and then he hit the big time and he ran for the presidency of the United States in 1964. Welcome, Senator Goldwater.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be with you, Ellen.
I was reading your book last night with no apologies, and we're not about to plug it here, but it's just absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
As a newcomer, 20 years, who loves Arizona, I loved your history part, and then you start to see where you arrive at some of your stances. So it's a very interesting book.
Well, thank you.
Let's talk about some of the issues that are pertinent in this coming election campaign.
All right.
First thing I want to ask you about is the seniority system.
Well, whether we like it or not, that's what we operate under. I wish we had a better system, but so help me, I haven't been able to think of one. Now, the seniority system is merely based on how many years you've been in the Senate and which party you belong to. Because if your party, say the Democrat Party, is the party that controls the Senate or the House, then your seniority means that you're going to be a chairman. If you're a member of the minority party, your seniority means you're going to be a high ranking. Like in my own case, I'm the highest ranking Republican on the Intelligence Committee. I am the highest ranking Republican on the Communications Subcommittee, and the highest ranking Republican on several very important military subcommittees. As I say, we've talked and talked about doing away with it. For example, maybe electing chairman. But there are just too many of those old timers have been around there, and they like the seniority system. Someday it's going to change, but not now.
In the case of, are you supporting anybody formally for the congressional race down here?
Oh yes, I'm supporting Mr. Huff.
Well, I kind of thought you were.
Yes.
The same seniority argument, would that not apply to
yes.
Mo Udall?
There's no question. Mo is the chairman of the Interior Committee, which to Arizona is probably as important a committee as we have in the whole city of Washington. And you can't argue against that.
I mean, I feel like we in Arizona are very, very lucky. We're such a teeny state. We have you, we have Mo Udall, we have Johnny Rhodes,
yes.
And regardless of politics, the three of you have a great deal of power.
Yes, we do, and you can throw in Ivo DiConcino, who is very high ranking on the Judiciary Committee.
You mean Dennis?
Denny DiConcino. That gives him a lot of clout. I've often said somebody ought to write a book on the men and women who have come out of Arizona. And nobody's taken me up yet, but we've had probably more ambassadors, more secretaries of different agencies, more high-ranking people in Washington per capita than any other state in the Union.
You know why I think that is? I think those of us that love the Arizona way of life, most of us have given up a lot to come out here. And that means we're the kind of individual that will excel. We won't take no for an answer. And so to live out here and to face the, you're going to live where? Arizona kind of thing. So you have that drive to succeed, and that's because it's true. There was McFarland, Carl Hayden, the people we just talked about, all from Arizona. We're a teeny weeny little state.
Well, we're kind of stubborn people too. And we have such wonderful background here. We have the great cultural background of Mexico, of our Indians. The people who come to Arizona are still of a pioneering instinct. Like you say, going to Arizona, you out of your head? Well, I'm going to Arizona because it gives me a chance to do something. I'm tired of sitting back in Pennsylvania or Maryland or Delaware or Maine. I want to go out there where anybody can do anything they have the ability to do, regardless of race, creed, color, I don't care what.
That was one of the things I loved the most about Tucson, because in St. Louis, where I came from, you hardly ever had friends of a different racial background.
Oh, I know that.
And in Tucson, everybody is your friend, whomever you wish to be your friend.
I was born in the territory, and I had to go east to school to know that there was supposed to be a difference between a black man and a white man, or between a Gentile and a Jew. We didn't know anything about that in Arizona. So we grew up right.
We'll be back with Senator Barry Goldwater in a moment. I'm talking with Senator Barry Goldwater, who is running in this year's election for a senatorial seat. His opponent is Mr. Schultz, whom we had on a previous program. In reading your book, and I'll quote from it, you said, "Anyone who ever served time in a war has come to speculate about the politics which produced the conflict."
Yes.
And then you went into your theory about strong defense.
Yes, I know at first blush it may be a little difficult to understand. I believe, to jump ahead a bit, I believe the day is coming, not well as young as you are, you won't be alive. Maybe 300 years from now, we will have eliminated in this whole world discrimination. There will be no discrimination because of religion, because of color, race, or anything else. Now, when the world can sit down and talk to each other, even though it's in different languages, but they can understand each other, we have a much, much better chance for peace. And I honestly believe, and I know it sounds corny, I believe that's God's plan. Now, to get back to the other thing that I said, you begin to think about, why are we at war? Now, I was in World War II, fought through the whole doggone thing, and we would get into more philosophical discussions about it because every man I served with was convinced that had the United States been strong militarily and economically in the 1930s and had told Hitler, look, you step on the soil of any of our friends and you're stepping on our soil, there never would have been a war. Now that gets to the use of the word power, because whether we like it or not, and any man who's ever been to war doesn't like it, if you have power, the nations who would attack you will not attack you. I don't think we would have ever had hostages held in Iran had Iran known that we were a strong enough country to prevent it, but they knew we were not strong enough, so we have the hostages.
You bring up a question that many Americans are asking. Some statesmen, such as yourself and other people, say that we are very weak militarily
Yes.
at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we citizens say, wait a minute, every year there are billions going into the defense fund. How can we be weak if there are billions spent for defense?
Well, did you ever hear that little old word, inflation?
Slightly.
Now, I'll give you an example. In World War II, the most expensive airplane we flew cost $225,000. That was a bomber. It carried 10, 12 people. Now, single-seater fighter planes cost as much as $22 to $25 million. And right here in Tucson at the Hughes plant, they build a wonderful ammunition for the F-14 Navy fighter. And when that fighter lines up on the deck to take off, there's $1 million worth of ammunition hanging under its wings. That's why it costs so much. We don't like it. I voted against a new aircraft carrier because I'm convinced it's going to cost $8 billion.
What?
$8 billion before we get through with it. We start these things, and they start out beautifully, cheap. This $24 million fighter plane started out $3 million. I've flown it. It's a wonderful airplane. I wish we didn't have to pay that much for it. And so we're not getting, the old saying of Eisenhower, we're not getting as much bang for the buck as we used to get. I'm not saying we can't turn that around. We may be able to do it by encouraging the use of less sophisticated equipment. We have gotten, I think, too far into equipment that it really takes a graduate of Massachusetts Institute of Technology to run. I like them simple.
Want to ask you about your stand on abortion.
Well, my stand on abortion is a rather simple one. It's old-fashioned. I think that an abortion should be up to the woman and her doctor. And if the two of them feel that, particularly the doctor, and the mother agrees that the birth of the child would be dangerous to the child or dangerous to the mother, then I think an abortion should be allowed. I don't think under any circumstances should it be paid for by the state or the federal government. If there are private agencies that can provide the money, fine. That's the old-fashioned way, and I'm stuck with it.
We'll be right back. Senator Goldwater, there are two instances that I know of personally that you've been very prophetic. One of them was last year at the Independent Television Convention. You made a speech, and at that time you said that you did not like the Titan II silos around Tucson and that you thought they were dangerous. That was last January.
Well, let's take a good look at it. These Titans were built to last 10 years. Now, these little rascals sitting out here are 17 years old. And like anything made out of particularly brittle metal like aluminum, with tremendous pressure of liquid oxygen in them, sooner or later something has to go. Now, these Titans around Tucson have only recently been examined, and the Air Force says they're absolutely safe. Personally, I would just as soon take all the Titans we own and deactivate them. I wouldn't take them out of the ground. I'd just take all the fuel out of them, take the atomic heads off, and leave them there. And then when the geologists come along in about 5,000 years, they'll say, what the hell were those people up to?
Let them figure it out.
We've got plenty of missiles, far too many.
When my husband was a newsman in this town about 17 years ago, they took some news people to a base in California, and they were going to show off the Titans, and they sent it up without the warhead attached to it, and the darn thing blew up.
I remember that. We've got a moving picture of it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
You said they had to hustle them back in the bus and get them out of there so the debris didn't fall on them.
Well, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and my hunch, I would almost make another prediction, that we do take the Titans, and we dismantle them or disarm them, take the oxygen out of them, just forget about them. But it won't, it'll take a year to get it going, but wherever the Titans are now, people want to get rid of them.
The other thing that you were prophetic on, or maybe just a lot of good deductive reasoning, last week I heard you speak, and someone asked you about Iran, and you said, we can't live without the Iranians, and the Iranians can't live without us.
That's right.
1 week later, we hear that the Iranians are tied up because they need us for parts in this war with Iraq.
Yes. Well, of course, everything that Iran has in the way of war equipment, aircraft, tanks, trucks, I don't think they have our rifles or machine guns, but everything they fight with is ours. So they need parts, and we no way in the world we can give them the parts or get them to them if we wanted to. There's a very unfortunate war that started over there. I would like to think it's not going to last very long. I'd also like to think that because of the weakness of Iran now, that there will be a demand or a revolution to get rid of Khomeini. And when that happens, and they go back to intelligent, sensible Iranian people running the government, then the United States and Iran will get along.
Don't you worry about the sensible person in Iran who is probably underground until all this religious fervor passes over?
No, I'm not. I talked to the ambassador from Saudi Arabia one night about religion. And he's a Muslim. And he said, I know what church you belong to. And he named it. And he said, you've got nuts in your church too. I said, yes, we have nuts. He says, every religion has them. Now, he says, we have about the same percentage in the Muslim religion, and this Khomeini, it happens to be one of them. And there's nothing that we can do about it. That's just his way of thinking, and we just have to wait till the time comes when they throw him out, which they will do. Now, the Iranians that will take over, many of them have been students here at the University of Arizona, Arizona State, Northern Arizona. Iran is a country not a lot unlike Arizona. Iran has far more barren deserts than we have. I know a lot about Iran. I've been going there. My first visit was during World War II in 1942. And consequently, I've grown to know them. I like the people. They're very, very friendly. It's just the wrong crowd running the place now.
You also said that you were not fearful of a large war now, as you were not as fearful as you were a couple of years ago.
Yes, that's right.
Why is that?
I don't think the Soviets really want to go to war with us. And now if you'll add that little thought to the situation the Soviets find themselves in along their entire border, and this is something I never thought I'd live to see the Soviets get themselves into. On one end, the eastern end, is China, 1,500 divisions. We only have 13 in our whole army.
13 divisions?
That's all. We're going to have 2 more pretty soon. 1,500, but they don't have any trucks or tanks. But there's the biggest massing of troops and aircraft at that end of the Soviet-Chinese border. Then you move to Afghanistan, where they invaded that country that even Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great they stubbed their toe there. That country is so rough to make the Grand Canyon look like the top of that table. And the Soviets are stuck there with, we don't know for sure, but probably 20 to 25 more divisions. Then you come upon Yugoslavia, and Tito's just died, so Tito always leaned towards us. Will his followers lean towards us? If they do, what will the Soviets do about that? More mountainous, very hard country to fight in. And then this latest flap in Poland, where the Polish workers in effect told the Soviet boys just to you know what, and they got their pay raised, they got their working conditions bettered. I don't think the Soviets are in any condition to go to war with anybody. I think that the Soviets at this time probably face the most dangerous period they have ever faced. They have starvation facing them. We have a grain boycott on that's very effective. Where they raise their cattle is the part of Russia where all the Muslims live, and that's something very few people realize. About 1/8 of the Russian people are Muslims. Most of the whole country of the Soviets lie above the latitude of Minnesota, and what can you grow in Minnesota besides trout? So Russia's not in a good shape, and I don't think she wants to fight us.
With that cheerful note, we'll be back in a moment. That's exactly it. Senator Goldwater, in this campaign, your age, which is 71, I believe?
71.
And your absentee record in the Senate has been an issue.
Yes.
What would you say to those things?
Well, I was in the hospital, unfortunately, 2.5 months this summer. Now, up to the day I had to go in the hospital with a very badly infected bone in my leg, my voting record was around 92%, which is pretty good
For all the time you have served?
for this year.
Oh, for this year.
For this year, all the time, I don't know what it is. It goes back a long time. So I missed votes during that period. That would be my excuse. Now, age, my opponent has spent $1 million or more trying to tell people that I'm old. Well, I don't think 71 is very old. The best senator we ever had in this state quit when he was 92, so I've still got a while to go.
And we sure needed him for the CAP.
Oh, we wouldn't have had anything without Carl Hayden. You wouldn't even had a university down here without Carl Hayden. So I think he's barking up the wrong tree because I'm not old. I don't feel old. I still fly jet airplanes, still fly airplanes, still do anything I want to do.
I guess if you can fly an airplane, you certainly could be in the United States
Yeah,
Senate.
oh, I think we can do that. Yeah.
I noticed in your book that you mentioned that you are one of the small number of people in the Senate who is not a lawyer by background.
That's true. I think there are only 12 businessmen in the whole Senate, 12 people like myself who have met payrolls, who have paid taxes on a business, who have run a business, who understand the free enterprise system. The rest of them are either lawyers or they've attended law school and never practiced law but gone right into politics. And I've always agreed with Tom Jefferson, there were too many lawyers in the Congress.
The press. Do you think that you now get a fair shake from the press?
Oh, I think, yes, I don't complain about the press. At one time I did during my presidential campaign. But today I think I understand them better. I think I know their weaknesses, I know their strengths. A lot of my good friends are editors and owners of papers. And in the television and radio, I think it's always a pretty good shake.
My guest this evening has been Senator Barry Goldwater, the senior senator from the state of Arizona. This is the last in our series of major political candidates before you need to go out on Tuesday and vote. Many other people have told you that, so I'll just make that one more time. And also, tomorrow evening from 9:30 to 10:30, we will have an hour show on all the propositions that you will be voting on in Tuesday's election. So join us tomorrow evening. Good evening.